Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Pyxis Lab, the leading manufacturer of inline and handheld monitoring technology for the water treatment industry. Are you tired of the fouling issues and maintenance requirements that come with using a standard DPD wet chemistry chlorine analyzer? Introducing the Pyxis OxyPanel Plus, a non-wet chemical oxidizer and pH analyzer with an auto-brushing reservoir that gets you the results you need in the most challenging of applications. No more electrolyte solutions, membrane gels, or reagents. Simply replace the electrode head assembly. However, you're not even going to have to do that very often, as the head assembly offers a 2-year lifespan. The single sensor platform is sure to impress with a touchscreen display, ultrasonic flow meter, and advanced compensating algorithms. Reduce your time spent on fouling and maintenance issues by replacing your wet analyzer with a new Pyxis OxyPanel Plus. Have an application? Pyxis has a solution. Go to scalinguph2o.com/Pyxis to find out more. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/Pyxis, Pyxis. Pyxis, because water professionals deserve better. Welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast. My name is Trace Blackmore, the host of the Scaling Up H2O podcast. Of course, the podcast where we scale up on knowledge so we don't scale up our systems. And nation, how awesome was last week? Last week was the Association of Water Technology's annual convention in Louisville, Kentucky. It was so good seeing so many of you. I have to say, as the host of this podcast, when I first started out, I didn't know who was going to listen to this podcast. And I love this industry. I love the people that I meet that work within this industry. And folks, I love to teach this industry. I love to instill the values that my father taught me on how to respect and improve this industry. And I love passing that on to other people. And it was my hope when I started this podcast in 2017 that, I don't know, somebody would listen to it. Well, nation, last week, so many of you came up to me and told me what this podcast means to you, things that you've done because of this podcast. And so many of you are getting your certified water technologist designation, and you give me in this podcast credit, but I'm going to tell you that is no easy task. You did all the heavy lifting there. Maybe I created a spark that allowed you to push that first domino, but let me tell you, anything that you've done because of this podcast, you have done all the pushing on all of those dominoes. And it is just so cool to get feedback that not only are people listening to this podcast, you all are doing what my father told me that we needed to do. And that was, if we were going to be in this industry, we need to make sure that this industry is better because we are in it. And I heard so many of those stories last week. And there were so many people that came up to me and said, I hope I'm not bothering you. Nation, you are not bothering me with that. Oh my gosh, that is the highlight of why I do the podcast, to hear what you're getting out of this podcast. Of course, things that you want to hear on this podcast, things that you've done because you heard about it on this podcast. So please, you are never bothering me. You are honoring me. And I just want to thank all the people that came up to me last week. And oh my gosh, what an amazing last week was. So if you weren't at the Association of Water Technologies conference, I was given a great honor last week at the conference. And I say I, but I'm going to say we, the Scaling Up Nation, have received an amazing recognition last week. And that was, I got to receive the Innovation Award. And the Innovation Award is an award that focuses on an AWT member whose product or concept brings added value to the industry as a whole. Well, Nation, that's the whole reason we started the Scaling Up H2O podcast. So again, just to cap off how amazing last week was, not only did I share all the things that happened with you all in the Scaling Up Nation and my conversations with you, but then we received an award recognizing that very thing. So Trace Blackmore, the host of this podcast, is absolutely beaming right now. And I want to thank everybody in the Scaling Up Nation for all that you do to support this podcast. Of course, all the people that tell me show ideas, that's why we're going to do 400 shows by the end of the year this year. And I have no doubt we've got another at least 400 in us. You're always letting us know what you want to hear on the next podcast. So thank you for that. And I really want to thank you for letting people know that this podcast exists. Tens of thousands of people listen to this podcast. And that's not because I bought a microphone. That is because of all of you. And you are letting other industrial water treaters know that there is a podcast that unites all of us. It puts us in a tribe, and that tribe is the Scaling Up Nation. And we realize when we are driving from account to account that we are no longer alone. Even though that we're not in proximity to other Scaling Up Nation members, we know that there are other people that are experiencing the exact same thing that we are right now. And I have heard so many people say that that has given them courage, that has given them patience, that has given them inspiration in the moment of whatever they are doing at that particular time. So, Nation, once again, thank you for listening to this podcast. Thank you for being a member of the Scaling Up Nation. And it's just been such an honor to be able to accept the Innovation Award on behalf of the entire Scaling Up Nation last week at the Association of Water Technologies. Nation, some of the feedback that I received last week is the nation absolutely loves that we make a one-stop shop for all of the things that are coming up in our industry, so you have one place to go to see all the conferences, all the trainings, all of the whatever is happening in one easy-to-find place. And that, of course, is scalinguph2o.com and going over to our events page. We put everything that we can find and everything that people tell us that's going on in the world of water on that page, so you can go there and you know what's going on. But I know many of you are driving, and we always like to pick out a few of those items to pique some interest as you're driving from account to account. And one of those events coming up is World Rivers Day, and that is taking place September 22nd. And World Rivers Day highlights the many values of our rivers and strives to increase public awareness and encourages the improved stewardship of all the rivers around the world. So that's taking place in just 2 days. We've got all that information if you want to learn more on our events page. And while you're there, you can check out the Source Water Protection Week that's taking place September 24th through 30th. And that's put on by the American Waterworks Association, where they recognize source water protection. And throughout the entire week, they raise awareness about the importance of caring about our drinking water sources. So we'll have all that information on our events page. And then a huge conference coming up is WEFTech 24. This is the 97th time they've done this conference, and it is taking place in New Orleans, Louisiana. What a great town. The conference is October 5th through 9th. And we're going to have all of that information on our events page. And then finally, the 18th International Conference on Wetland Systems for Water Pollution Control is taking place November 24th through 29th in Port-de-France, Martinique. And this is hosted by the International Water Association. So, for more information on this or anything else that I've mentioned and things that I haven't mentioned, you know where to go, scalinguph2o.com/events, or you can just navigate over to our events section. The team's done a great job with creating a calendar and also creating links. So, from one place, you can explore to all the great options that we can go to with industrial water. Nation, to brag about my team, I've got the best team in podcasting, the best editor, the best producer, the best coordinator, and all of these fine people come together to make this great show. And one of the things they're always looking for is what are some new things, what are some new people that we can invite to the show? And they do that by seeing who's posting with social media. So, Nation, I'm getting ready to interview the CEO of Veolia Water Technologies, and he's going to talk about his commitment to safety. So, Nation, here is that interview. My lab partner today is Arnaud Valleteau of Veolia. Welcome to the Scaling Up H2O podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So thank you for coming on the podcast. I want to let you know that your social media post a couple of months ago really got the attention of our team here at Scaling Up. And we're going to be talking today about the push that you all are making for making sure everybody is safe. But before we get there, do you mind introducing yourself to the Scaling Up Nation?
Hello, everyone. So I'm Arnaud Valleteau. I'm a father of 4, and I'm the CEO of Veolia Water Technology. I've been working in Veolia for 20 years in different countries, 11 years abroad, and I have the great chance of being the CEO of Veolia Water Technology since 1 year. Veolia Group has the purpose of leading the ecological transformation by decarbonizing, depolluting, and regenerating resources. Veolia is operating on a worldwide scale on waste, water, and energy operations. And Veolia Water Technology is one of the subsidiaries of the group dedicated to water technologies and solutions that we can bring to our customers.
Obviously, health and safety are important. And if our people aren't well, then we have bigger problems. But that also is something that doesn't get talked about as much as it should. So you as a company leader, what was the catalyst where you said, hey, we need to put an emphasis on this?
It has been part of the culture of Veolia for a while now. And everybody is on subsidiary all around the world. We're already taking action around health and safety. But a few years ago, 10 years ago, in fact, Veolia decided to make some specific events to have everybody on board in order to work during the same week around health and safety. So that's how we've created the International Health and Safety Weeks, where during 1 week, all the subsidiaries of Veolia all around the world are putting the topics forward. So we used to say, and that health and safety is not just 1 week, it's 24, 7 days a week, but we take a time during this week in order to think about what we are doing and how we are developing things. We all had in our BUs fatalities. We all had people not getting back to work after some accidents. We all had what I call wake-up call regarding health and safety, different types, different risks that have materialized, which have pushed us definitely to tackle these big challenges. And furthermore, Veolia is regarding its activities through what we call a multifaceted performance, saying that we have 5 main stakeholders that we want to address: the planet, our customer, our shareholders, and our people. And the health and safety topic and the frequency rate and the LTI rate is one of the key drivers for the managers as well. And their performance is also reviewed based on this basis. So we want to have this holistic approach to the society, to the planet, to our shareholder, to our customer, and also to our people. So it's really in the DNA, I would say, of the company. And we want to keep it in the DNA quite strongly.
Well, we're going to get to International Health and Safety Week, but I want to build up to how you created that idea. Did you all form a committee and say, this is something we're going to focus on? These are the things we need to cover. This is how we're going to launch it. Can you read us into how you did that?
Basically, it started, Veolia, it's not just Veolia water technology. Veolia globally is acting all over the world. We have waste operation, water operation, energy operation, and the water technology branch is another branch. And in some BUs of Veolia, already people were taking a week, taking a day to reflect on health and safety. And what we do in Veolia is that we share best practices. So once these best practices has been detected, having an impact on what we can do in terms of health and safety, the group decided to make it globally. The group decided to scale up from what has been started by a BU, by a region, and to scale it up to the size of the group. So the group is somehow deciding and giving guidance, saying, okay, this week will be the International Health and Safety Weeks. Those are the topics we would like to push, and then it's up to us at the regional level, at the BU level, then to deploy it using the best tools we can have, adapting it to our specific risks as well when needed, but deploying it all at the same time. And that's really what we want to foster and to push more, is grabbing all those best practices and being able at the scale of the group to spread it over to all the regions. So that's how it started 10 years ago.
What are the things that you make sure that you cover during that week?
We make sure that we communicate on, I would say, the thematic of the week, which has been decided. So it could have been health and safety improvement, safety is in your hand, safe reflex. The next one will be let's break the routines. And we then discuss and review our health and safety track record, near misses in each BU, and see what will make sense to have an influence. So if we had, for example, some traffic management troubles or accident or incident during the year, this is where we might focus on. If we had some incident in our workshops, not using the right tool or with lifting operation, this is where we will deploy. And this is how we will decide what we are going to deploy. We are used, because in Veolia we have 10 standards. We have what we call 12 life-saving rules. So based on this framework, then we are deploying and we are giving some advices. There is a part which is, I would say, mandatory to be deployed. And then we let the BU think also by themselves and propose what they are going to deploy. So there is a clear push from the top in terms of governance and where we should go, but we really want the people and our teams to get involved, not to be active in the preparation of the week and then during this week, because we deeply believe that's how health and safety should be deployed. We will push from the management, but then it's really up to the ground to say what should be done, what can be done, and where best practices can also, and sometimes worse practices that we need to erase, but can pop up. So, and this helps us to create a dialogue between the team, the management, the health and safety department, in order to make sure that we create trust and a safe place, I would say, to discuss such kind of topic.
So obviously this has become an expectation. You've been doing it for almost 10 years, coming up on the 10th year. When you first started, it was brand new. How did you make sure that, one, all of your people knew about it, but then also that they were doing the things that you were hoping were going to make a positive result?
When it started, and then come back to my story within Veolia, when it started, it was in 2015, so I was in Bulgaria. I was not managing Veolia Water Technology. I was managing a concession contract in Bulgaria, and we received it very positively. We were already doing a lot of things around health and safety. It was quite important. It's a company where we are workers working 24 hours on the street, digging pipes, repairing water losses on the network, being out in an unsafe environment, reading matters within conducts which are not their ones, which are not where they are not used to go. So we wanted really to raise the awareness. So we grabbed the opportunity to say, guys, this is a positive things we can do together. Those are the thematics. how do we implement it? And it was very well received by our people because it was not artificial. In fact, we were already pushing for that. They see this as an important milestone during the year, but it's not just 1 week, as I've said. It's one thing important during the year, but then we make sure that it keeps on going every day, that the good habits that we are taking during this week. So it was very well received. It would be once a year, and that's just for ticking the box. And really, it was up to the management to demonstrate that we were very serious about that. And it was not just ticking the box. It was really making a change. So that's really what it was all about. And then it started to be a good habits that we have taken, and people are expecting this week in order to get together first and to discuss this topic. But I really hope that they are doing it even before and after this week.
So I want to ask about that because it's 1 week that you focus on. How do you make sure that it's not, okay, we're just going to think about it this week? No, we're going to prime this week so we think about it every day.
As I'm saying to my manager and to my people, it's up to us. But basically, it's really up to us and the way as manager, as leader, as employee, as colleagues, we will take it into account. If we are not serious about that, if we do not take some good habits, if we do not create management rituals around health and safety, then we won't have it in our DNA. It will just be artificial. What we really want is this to become a reflex from our part. So having health and safety minutes when we start meetings, having discussion on the field, doing managerial visit on the field, and we put them some KPIs saying, okay, the manager, they have to do at least 6 management visits on the field during the years. And that's the commitment of the EXCO that we are going to do that. How do we make sure that we have near misses reports popping up? How do we make sure that we are analyzing them? How do we make sure that we are giving a feedback around those near misses? How do we so we put a whole governance around that and then making sure that we are pushing it. And when I'm traveling, when I'm visiting teams, we take some time to discuss about health and safety. So they can see also as well that it's not just their manager, but it's also the CEO of the company, which is also very involved into that.
What are some things that you've identified over the last 10 years that are no longer issues that you originally identified as some issues?
Speaking about it, might have been an issue at some point. People thought that if they were raising health and safety issue, they would be considered as not willing to work, or they would be considered by their colleagues are not being super strong, or so, killing a bit the fact that you're Superman and that you can do everything, and the guy that is doing everything is an unsafe environment is really a superhero. No, it's really not a superhero. It's just putting everybody at risk. So killing this vision of, I know what I'm doing, don't worry, and everything will be fine, and I've done this for 20 years, and there is no issue. Killing this is something I think we have achieved, but I'm very cautious by saying this, because if there is one thing that I've learned in terms of health and safety, is that we are never done. Never. Once we believe we have treated an issue or a problem, we can treat it with with protective personal equipment, or we can treat it by collective measure, but it always comes to the human being and the way people are acting. And this is something you need to be very cautious on. So each time we think a danger has disappeared, then we have an accident around that. So I do hope that we have changed the culture, but the risks are still there.
When there is an accident reported, what does your committee do? What do you make sure that other people are doing so that's not repeated?
Now, I can give you an example that has happened 1 month ago. When an accident is reported, and when this accident is creating lost time injuries, then this is directly reported to me and to the management committee. And then even if we do not have the clear understanding and vision of what has happened, because we need then to do the analysis and getting up to the root cause analysis, we are spreading the information within the EXCO, and we make sure if it comes to one equipment when it comes to one, and when we have clearly identified if it was a behavior topics or an equipment or something like that, we launch an alert somehow, and we make sure that everybody rechecking what they are doing, re-explaining the day right after during safety minutes, and they are gathering their people and explaining what has happened, so that we make sure that people are aware and rethinking once again about what they were doing. We are rechecking everything. So we are learning. We keep on learning on that, and we keep on making sure that when one thing is happening, we are spreading the news. Once again, not pointing the fingers, the people or the managers or whatever, but making sure that everybody is safe afterwards, that we learn from what has happened. And we control that thing, that we make sure that we inform, we make sure that our managers are pushing, and we make sure that everybody is informed or is well aware of what has happened and what they should do and how they should behave in such case.
You mentioned key performance indicators earlier. By instituting a program like this and it being so well received by everybody throughout the company, that had to have made an impact not only on team health, both mentally and physically, but I'm assuming it also reduced costs because accidents are expensive, however you want to define that.
It's a consequence of reducing the number of accidents, and it can save costs, but it's also, we are investing in new equipment. We are investing in protective personal equipment. We are investing in collective protective equipment. So there is a huge investment also from the company. But we are really doing it because we can't accept that somebody is getting hurt. That's fundamental, that if you want to lead the ecological transformation, if you have a purpose at the one Veolia is having, you need to make sure that your people are safe and are acting, are getting back home safely, and that you don't have any accident, and that you need to aim for the zero accident. There is no other alternative. You need to be exemplary in this topic. So it's really about company's purpose. It's really about company's image. It's really about what we want to achieve. And then there are consequences. But that's really what is at the heart of this policy.
You also mentioned earlier that there were 12 rules that save. Can you mention those 12 rules?
Well, we have 3 around traffic management. Mostly I look at what I'm doing. I'm not in the path of moving vehicles when I'm on the site. I drive free from drugs and alcohol. I fasten my seatbelt. I signal also when I'm turning, when I'm doing things. So that's very basic rules. On work at heights, really, those are the main, in fact, risks that our population and our people can be are exposed to. Excavation and trenching. Trench shielding is really a topic on our network. Confined space. We in VVT had fatalities on confined space. People getting down in confined space and not getting out. How do I control hazardous energy? How do I work on electricity? How do I perform hot works? How do I do lifting operation? How do I handle hazardous materials? And how do I work with high pressure water, hydroblasting and jetting? So those are the 12 life-saving rules. Quite simple. On lifting operation, the rule is quite clear. I never work under suspended loads. Point. So that's clear. And we try to make it simple. And what we've done is that basically we reviewed them at each level of the company, and the management is signing off on those rules. So in the offices, you might see life-saving rules, and with the signature of the management saying, I'm committed to make this happen.
I also want to say you made it fun. That's what caught the attention of my team, all the social media posts that you were doing around that week. So how did you come up with all the social media campaign, and how are we going to make this fun, but also how do we make this sticky so people want to do it and they continue to do it?
I guess we need to find every time different way to address the topic. We can be serious, we can make it fun, we can make it sad. We really need to have all those multifaceted view, I would say, on the topic in order to be able to touch not only, I would say, the rational brain of our people, but also the emotional one. So it's really about finding the ways of getting to our people and to make sure that we are able to make it, but to pass by the message. So some are more reactive to funny things, some are more reactive to sad things, or some are more reactive to rational things. So we need to embrace, I would say, the diversity of our people.
Somebody listening today says, okay, well, Veolia is huge, so obviously they have the resources to put towards this. But for somebody that just might be a sole practitioner, or maybe they just have a few people on their team, how do you get started? What recommendations do you have for them?
Turn at the top. It starts by the leader. It starts by how the leader will behave. It starts by exemplarity. And this is not very expensive. It starts by a policy, by saying what you're going to do and by doing it. It starts by then putting the team together around this topic and say, okay, let's take time to reflect on this matter. Let's take time to think about that. What are you exposed to? What can we avoid? Did you see that you were that this was dangerous? It starts by us. In fact, it starts by people. It's not a huge investment. It's a time investment. It's a managerial investment, but it doesn't have to be very expensive. And furthermore, you have some regulations and law that you need to apply, even if you are a small company. So that's really, but for me, turn at the top, a clear guidance, a clear governance, and people around the table.
Well, you are the example of that. The CEO is taking time to make sure that this is an important initiative, and even coming on this podcast and sharing all the things that you've done. There's another question that I wanted to ask you. You mentioned that there were manager visits and you wanted to see a minimum of 6. What happens during one of those visits?
We have a framework, in fact, there is a sort of templates that you need to have a look at. You check if those life-saving rules are applied. You discuss, you need to have talking points with the people on site, making sure that they are well aware about is it safe or not of doing that. If there were near misses that they know about, or things that have changed during the last month, year. And you have a fresh eyes on the site. So you can see things that people usually don't see. And it's quite interesting because you start speaking about things that they do not see anymore. And at the end, say, oh, yeah, you're right. It was not completely safe here. That's right. But we are used to. Yeah, that's the point. You're used to. And even more, to emphasize that, I have my colleagues which are much more on support function, HR, finance, or which are more working in the office. They are telling me, well, we don't really know what to look at or what to see because we are not operational people. We are not on the ground. And I thought, you know what? That's perfect. Because you will come with your common sense and you will raise questions that maybe operational people don't see anymore. Don't be ashamed of asking questions. This is really what it's all about. Don't be ashamed of asking questions. Don't be ashamed of reacting on something that you are seeing. Don't be ashamed of asking questions. It's a no-brainer as a topic. We need to discuss about that. So we make sure that we take pictures, we discuss way of improving things, and we try to capture that into a small template and report it so that there is a trace and so that there can be a follow-up if needed.
If you could only get one point across today to the listeners of this podcast, what do you want that point to be?
Be exemplar. It starts by you.
And once again, you are the example of that. I want to thank you for coming on the Scaling Up H2O podcast. I want to thank you for getting the attention of my team so we can interview you with all the social media that you put out. And I'm pretty sure that people are thinking, if an 8,000 employee company can do this and deploy it and do it well, and the CEO is passionate about it, well, now I have hope for doing it in my business. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Scale Up Nation, how about that? The CEO of an 8,000 employee company takes time out of his regular schedule to make sure that everybody in that 8,000 employee company is safe. And I love that. And we, of course, continued the conversation after I stopped recording. And he wanted to let me know, so I could let all of you know, that each and every meeting they have, they always put an emphasis on health and safety and compliance. And they say that these are non-negotiables. We make sure that we do these, and it has a space in all of the meetings that they do. And that gives me hope. If you're wondering, my company is not 8,000 employees, but I always wonder, what's the first step that I need to do something that I'm not currently doing? And I'm very proud of my team. We have a safety committee. And by the way, if you need help with a safety committee and you have not listened to episode 358, Reed Hutchinson and Mike Hyam came on and talked about, I believe the title of the show was Safety First, and the things that they are doing and the things they recommend that you do to make sure that one of the most important things that we are paying attention to is the safety of our people. So that's a great show to go listen to. And I said that title was Safety First. And it wasn't until recently that I learned that maybe safety shouldn't be first. Maybe safety should be third. And I know what you're thinking. That's funny. Is he making a joke? But no, that's actually a concept that one of my favorite podcasters, one of my favorite TV hosts, is now telling people that we need to think safety third. And the reason for that, and who am I talking about, by the way, is Mike Rowe. And you guys know I'm a huge Mike Rowe fan. He's the guy that does Dirty Jobs and so many voiceovers. I wish I had a voice like his. But he tells the story that on Dirty Jobs, he and his crew didn't really have any accidents for the first 2 or 3 years that they were in the show. And they had to sit through these very long, boring safety briefings at every single place that they filmed at. And when they left, or when they went out to actually do the work, they noticed that there were certain things that just didn't make sense, and there was no way that was going to keep them safe. But they didn't challenge it because the company said safety first. So what they ended up doing was mentally, they figured that somebody else had their safety first of mind. So they didn't have their safety first of mind. And on season 3 or 4, I think it was, he said people started getting hurt at an astronomical rate. And the assumption was somebody else was looking out for them, so they weren't looking out for themselves. So I want to put a link to his podcast that he did in an article that he wrote, so you can read and listen to exactly what I'm talking about. But when they figured that they needed to make sure that they had their own safety in mind, somebody else didn't have it for them, they started taking care of themselves better. To refer to the interview that we just had, people were getting rid of the bad habits. People were rethinking things that they were doing. So he has a program called the Sweat Pledge. And this is a whole program that he's putting out to try to make sense of all the things that are going on in the United States. And one of the items on there is safety. So I think they're pretty cool that he put these out. It's 100% free. We're going to put a link to all of this if you want to check it out. I would definitely check out number 6. And number 6 on the pledge that he asked you to take says, I believe that my safety is my responsibility. I understand that being in compliance does not necessarily mean that I am out of danger. So there we go, Scaling Up Nation. We've got all sorts of resources for you. And I hope that you take the time to make sure that you are out of danger. A lot of times we think we don't have time to be safe. I remember when I was in a car accident, I did not think about my back. I was in a car accident. It was not my fault. Somebody hit me from behind. They were texting, not paying attention, not thinking about their safety or my safety. And folks, I have to tell you, since that accident a couple years ago, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about my back. That one decision of that person to check their text and hit me going 45 miles an hour in a stopped car making a left-hand turn makes me think about something that I never thought about at all. And now some days it's all I can think about. So take time for safety. You're going to protect yourself. You're going to protect other people, and go to the show notes page because we've got some resources for you. And Nation, speaking of resources, here is our friend James McDonald with a new installment on Drop by Drop with James.
Welcome to Drop by Drop with James, the podcast segment where we wonder, explore, think about, imagine, and learn industrial water treatment, you guessed it, drop by drop, together. In today's episode, I have a what if for you. What if the temperature of the softener regeneration water drops in the wintertime? Now, if you're in an area with a warmer climate year-round, you may not have to worry about this, but for those who live in colder climates, it is something to consider. How could colder water temperatures cause an issue with softener regeneration? Have you even considered this before? The answer is that water is denser at cooler temperatures. This could be especially important during the backwash step of the softener regeneration. A proper backwash is necessary to ensure efficient softener operation. It loosens the bed, minimizes pressure drop, cleans and classifies the resin, and maintains an even water flow across the cross-sectional area of the resin bed. Backwash flow rates must be high enough to expand the bed by 50% and typically last around 10 minutes or more. If the water is denser because it is colder, the same flow rate used in the warmer months can result in expanding the resin bed even more, which could ultimately lead to washing good resin down the drain. Resin manufacturers often have tables that show the required flow rates based upon water temperature. A big picture look at these flow rates roughly shows that in Fahrenheit, when the temperature drops to half what it was in the summer months, the required flow rate could drop in half as well. Be sure to always refer to the resin manufacturer's specifications for actual design numbers though. I'm James McDonald, and I want to encourage you to be like water by forming bonds with those around you, dissolving new knowledge, and making worthy ripples, drop by drop.
Well, James, thanks again. And I got to see James last week. And Nation, if it wasn't for me getting involved in this industry, I wouldn't have met all the people that I got to meet last week. I wouldn't have had my friend James. We wouldn't have had this podcast, and we definitely would not have had the segment that you just heard with James. So my ask is that you share this podcast with people in your company so they can start changing their mindset about safety, and you can start making sure that safety third, you're not just in compliance, you are making sure that you are out of danger. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll have a brand new episode for you next week of Scaling Up H2O. Scaling Up Nation, one of my favorite phone calls, emails, text, you name it, to receive is when somebody lets me know that they just received their Certified Water Technologist designation. I love going to conventions where people come up and let me know that they now have that prestigious designation. To help make sure that we are getting more and more people certified, we prepared a course to help prepare you with the confidence you need to sit for that examination. Go to scalinguph2o.com/CWT prep. Once again, that's scalinguph2o.com/CWT prep to check it out today.